What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai, an extension of Anime Senpai PH channel. All pieces of information are derived from the light novel. In today's video, we will continue Chapter 1, Volume 8 of the light novel, entitled Reconciliation and Agreement. This video is the 5th part of Chapter 1 in our Tensura spoiler video series. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, feel free to check out the links in the description below. Now, let's get to the video. Compared with those first few days of chewing on grass, life had become unbelievably better for Rimuru. The food itself was really enjoyable now too. Rimuru guessed it's easier to strive for something if you really felt like it would benefit you personally. The main dish on tonight's menu was tempura. Excellent. Progressing this far was seriously moving to Rimuru. It looked perfect. It tasted amazing. All the work of Shuna in the galley, definitely not Shion. It went without saying. Whether Shion had the Masterchef skill or not, one look at her attempts at cuisine and you knew she couldn't be trusted with the responsibilities of a kitchen. This tempura had also come about after Rimuru showed his memories to Shuna, and they developed each component piece by piece. And that wasn't all. Fried chicken, hamburger, steak, croquettes, fried shrimp, Rimuru loved it all, and it went without saying that Milim did too. For someone like Rimuru, not that well versed in cooking, trying to explain the difference between fried shrimp and tempura was quite a challenge. In simple terms, all you're doing is taking shrimp, coating it with butter, and frying it in oil. But the butter makes all the difference in texture and taste. Frying can be done in a bunch of different ways too, and trying to recreate that based on his memories of look and feel and taste proved fiendishly difficult. It took work, and now, thanks to Shuna's efforts, it had come all the way here. Inglesia had a lot of good food to enjoy, but nothing Rimuru would describe as Japanese. Geek Crimson had prepared a Western-style, full-course meal for him, but Rimuru just didn't see a lot of Asian influence in this world's cuisine. One reason for that, few of the Western nations bordered an ocean, so seafood wasn't in plentiful supply. It was explained to Rimuru that attempting to preserve the freshness of ingredients with magic took a massive investment that few were willing to make. Thus, even if you had other worlders who ran kitchens back in Japan, they couldn't do much without the right raw materials. That made Rimuru recall the Japanese otherworlder, Yoshida, who ran that bakery and cake shop Rimuru liked in Inglesia. Yoshida lamented how he used to enjoy making drunken cakes with gin, bourbon, and so on, but just couldn't find anything like that in this world. Rimuru remembered how excited Yoshida got after Rimuru told him that he would throw some his way. Thinking about that made Rimuru realize just how blessed he was over here. Just because you have a recipe doesn't mean you'll pull it off flawlessly on the first try after all. And with Japanese cuisine in particular, tracking down ingredients was a challenge. Rimuru would do things like go to the sea and capture a bunch of different fish species to try to find an equivalent to make bonito flakes from. Having a skill like spatial motion made it possible to transport goods in as fresh a condition as possible, which greatly expanded what was available to them. Cuisine, after all, is culture itself. To Rimuru, a nation should have a vibrant, expansive food culture, and out of the three basic needs, food, clothing, and shelter, food was number one, by far to him, although your mileage may vary. This was why Rimuru was expending a lot of energy developing new dishes. Wheat-based grain was easier than he surmised at first. Rimuru saw loaves of white bread in the Inglesian capital. If you were well off enough to afford it, it seemed like a daily staple. Studying the production process for that got us bread in Tempest in relatively short order. The main issue to tackle was white rice. They still hadn't engineered something up to snuff taste-wise, compared with what one saw in Japan, painstakingly curated and improved since ancient times. The quality just wasn't there. That was expected. Rimuru wasn't anticipating a sudden breakthrough for this one. Raising plants with magic, at least, sped up the harvests quite a bit, although research was still at a halt right now due to the winter season. For the moment, they just had a few experimental rice plants growing indoors, managed by researchers. Real results seemed like they'd be a while to come. Rimuru actually did have a solution for this though. When he asked Raphael about a potential answer, it gave it to him right off. Basically, use Shion's Masterchef skill to alter the resulting rice, tinkering the final plant rather than the initial seeds. After all, made improving the quality quite a bit easier. But was that really the right thing to do? It wasn't like anyone else could copy this method, and it seemed kind of ethically suspect to him. But given how much Rimuru relied on just that method to fine-tune their alcoholic drinks, Rimuru was in no position to moralize. Put his conscience and his appetite on the scales, and the latter's going to win every time. Since they couldn't ask Shion to alter every harvest for them, their research continued. But Rimuru did have her engineer a small supply of lovely white rice though. Just a bit, mainly for his personal consumption. Shion was more than glad to help, so Rimuru gave the bag to Shuna and had her steam it up for special occasions. Occasions like this one. Rimuru was entertaining a demon lord, so he thought it's time to live a little. If Rimuru wanted to make their relationship a good one, he had to demonstrate how useful his nation could be. The carrot and the stick. When someone you don't like treats you well for a change, your impression of them goes up much higher than it does with someone you're already on good terms with. Imagine the ex-juvenile delinquent who volunteers to help out kids for charity, that kind of thing. Rimuru thought that maybe a little show like that could turn Luminous and crew to his side. He wasn't sure the paladins would be that gullible, but appealing to people's stomachs is a pretty classic and effective strategy to take. It was a tad underhanded, but it was also a great excuse to turn this evening's feast into an extravaganza. The white rice might disagree with their palates, since that particular element of their cuisine is more for him as a Japanese person. But Rimuru bet Hinata would appreciate it. It sure wowed him after going without it for a while. Plus, everybody likes tempura. It was already a hit with the adventurers and merchants. Benimaru, in particular, was actually a huge fan. Clearly, there were no obstacles to its acceptance in this world. As Rimuru reflected on this, the serving trays were all put in place. Now they just had to wait for the paladins to get out of the bath. The place settings were lined up in the shape of the letter C, with 3 seats at the center. Rimuru in the middle, Valdora and Luminous on either side. It gave Rimuru a view of everyone at the banquet, with the paladins and their city's officials facing each other along the arc. This had the nuance of an informal gathering, so Rimuru wanted to be sure that people could all see one another. Soon, the paladins were ushered into the banquet hall. They had just come out from the bath, wearing the yukata and jinbei prepared for them. It must have been a novel experience, but they looked comfortable for the most part. You'd be hard-pressed to find something even more relaxing to wear around the house, after all. Kind of like lounging around in sweats all day. They all seemed a bit on edge as they were guided inside. The lack of tables and chairs must have thrown them, not to mention the custom of taking off their footwear before going up on the tatami floor. The goblinas guiding them along were in their element, however, demonstrating some pretty surprising elegance. Vester must have been teaching them well. Rimuru could tell some of the paladins weren't sure what to make of them. Lumina sat down first, the picture of high society as she settled next to Rimuru. Louie was next, a practical mirror image of the former Demon Lord Roy, and every bit as dignified as his papal rank suggested. Third was Hinata, who, after sitting down, looked at Rimuru, determined. Hinata spoke first and said that she had to apologize for all the trouble they'd given them. She explained that what happened today, as well as the last time they met, had been thanks to her own poor judgment. It wasn't an order from Lady Luminous, and her paladins were not responsible for it. Hinata said that she didn't know if they could find it in themselves to forgive her, but Rimuru immediately stepped up to interrupt her. Rimuru had to stop her before Hinata started kowtowing to him on the tatami. Rimuru agreed that their first encounter was all her fault, but their most recent rumble was all a misunderstanding. The 7 Days guys pulled the strings behind it, and Luminous had already taken care of them. And with Diablo wrapping things up over in Farmus as well, Rimuru saw no reason to keep dragging out the issue. That's why Rimuru stepped up to interrupt her. But then, Rimuru made an astonishing new discovery. Rimuru thought he could see it, the smoothly undulating twin peaks unfolding underneath Hinata's partially opened yukata, slightly flushed after the bath, and so supremely captivating. That's it for this video, guys. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and click the bell notification icon so you will never miss the upcoming continuation of Tensura spoiler video series. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the top 10 commenters on my previous video. Shout out to Michael, Joji Ray, John Lester, Noir, Joy, Soccer for Anime, Gowan Shuan, Eric Fimate, Ryan Fowler, Rimuru Whitey, Biwas Tamang, Yusef BTR, Erwin Sarima, Carlos M, and last but not the least, shout out to Efren Senina. I'll see you guys in the next video.